knew something was wrong when my dad knocked on my bedroom door before sunrise. He hadn't knocked since 1997. He usually just yells from the hallway like a prison warden doing his rounds. This time, it was a gentle knock, followed by a pause, then, "You might want to come downstairs." I immediately thought someone had died. I was still putting on a sweatshirt when I smelled cinnamon and bleach. My sister's odd combination she uses to cover up something she's broken while pretending to bake. I stopped dead on the landing. There they were, Lindsay and Trent, standing in the living room like they'd won some bizarre contests. Piles of boxers, a crying baby, a suspicious-looking plant from my office, and my mom beaming as if she'd just been made a saint. "We've decided," she said, sounding like a judge passing a sentence, "they'll be staying here for a while, just until they get back on their feet." The phrase "just until" felt like the two most dangerous words in the English language. No one had even asked me. No one even bothered to text, which was ironic since I was the one paying the mortgage. The house might have been in my parents' names, but the lights were only on because I paid the bills while my dad's pension came in slowly and my mom gambled on her Etsy store selling beaded crucifixes. Lindsay gave me her usual tight, smug smile, the same one she used right before she'd steal something of mine. Like my boyfriend, my hoodie, or my silence. "Morning, sis," she said. "You look cozy. Hope you're ready to be the world's coolest aunt." Trent just grunted. Too busy hauling in a stained mattress that looked like it had survived a flood. The baby kept crying. No one offered me coffee. I hadn't even had time to use the bathroom. That was only day 1. By day 3, the kitchen looked like a chaotic daycare scene, with fruit puree smeared on the ceiling and bibs hanging from cabinet knobs like morbid trophies. Lindsay had taken over the dining table for her home office, which really just meant a mess of makeup samples and unsent apology cards to her upline. Trent had set up shop in the garage, telling my dad he'd fix the mower once the universe aligned. It wasn't long before the requests started coming. First it was, "Can you hold her while I shower?" Then, "Can you watch her while I run to Target?" And finally, "Can you just keep her for a few hours? We have a thing." A thing. The vague words she used to describe anything from a brunch to a funeral, as if it was my responsibility to fill in the gaps of her collapsing life. I tried to object gently at first. "Linda, I have to work. I have Zoom calls and payroll deadlines." "You work from home," she snapped, as if that somehow erased the fact I was managing employees for a dozen clinics and dealing with a CFO who thought Excel was magic. Then came the line that made the hair on my neck stand up. "You're being really selfish right now. We're family." It felt like a slap in the face, and she expected me to say thank you. That night, I checked my online banking, reviewing every recurring bill. I was covering electricity, internet, water, even the HOA fees. Scrolling through them felt like reading a list of my own regrets. That's when my plan began. I didn't scream or argue. I just smiled tightly and said, "You're right. Family comes first." The next morning, while Lindsay was yelling about someone using her avocado toner and Trent was asking what happened to the Wi-Fi, I quietly packed my things into a U-Haul and left before they even noticed. The best part, I left the checkbook open on the kitchen counter with blank pages and no signature. It took exactly 5 days for the unpaid bills to start arriving, and that's when the shouting began. Day 6, I was enjoying a cold brew in my new apartment. 700 square feet of freedom and beautiful silence when my phone went crazy. First, a missed call from my mom, then my dad, followed by a group text that started with, "Where are you?" and ended with 14 angry emojis and a crying baby selfie clearly sent by Lindsay. I didn't answer. I just leaned back, took a long sip of my coffee, and waited for the fireworks. They didn't disappoint. At 11:03 a.m., Trent called me directly. He hadn't said more than 4 full sentences to me in 5 years, unless it was about nachos or Wi-Fi. His voice was loud and sputtering, like a weed whacker. "Hey, so the internet's not working," he said, as if it were my fault. I didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, I canceled it." I smiled. "You called me selfish, remember?" I thought I'd lean into it. Click. 2 hours later, my mom called and left a voicemail. Something she never does because she thinks it feels too final. "Sweetheart," she said, "I know things got tense, but we didn't mean for you to feel pushed out. We just want to talk. Lindsay's going through a lot." Translation: "We prioritized her tantrum over your needs and hoped you wouldn't notice. I noticed, and things were about to get even better." That evening, the electric company called them. I had forgotten I was still the primary account holder. Apparently, someone had tried to change the account information but didn't know my dad's social security number or how to spell Cincinnati. "We've received a request to change billing responsibility," the woman said. "Just confirming with you first." I smiled to myself. "Oh, no. Cancel the service entirely. You should." At 7:42 p.m., the lights went out on their dysfunctional castle. Lindsay posted an Instagram story with the caption, "Wow, some people really show their true colors when you need them most," in the background. I could see Trent lighting a candle with a lighter and the baby chewing on a remote. The comments were a symphony of nosy suburban drama, with people asking if her sister had really left them. Yes, people were catching on. Then came the text. Not from Lindsay or Trent, but from my dad. "Get back here. We need to talk." You've made your point. But I wasn't finished. I hadn't even turned off the water yet. The mortgage was next. "You want to see who's selfish? Buckle up." They thought the blackout was the worst of it. It wasn't. That was just the trailer. The main event was about to begin. I waited 3 more days, giving Lindsay enough time to learn what it's like to shower with a gallon jug of store-brand water, and for Trent to discover that 19 tea candles don't power a microwave. Meanwhile, I was living my best life in a small apartment above a deli that smelled of bacon and freedom. The Wi-Fi was strong, the fridge was full, and there were 0 crying babies. My landlord even waived the deposit when I offered to prepay for 6 months, saying I had honest eyes. If only he knew. Day 9 was mortgage day, the one day of the month I got to be a fairy godmother with a debit card. The house was still in my parents' name, but every payment for the last 2 years had been automatically drafted from my account. Why? Because when my dad lost his job and my mom's Etsy store failed, I stepped in quietly, like always. I logged looked at the familiar next payment due notification and did what any selfish person would do. I canceled the auto draft. Then I waited. Lindsay was the first to break the silence. Sunday morning, I was watching Judge Judy reruns, folding laundry like a domestic warlord when my phone lit up. Lindsay, you need to fix this. Now, I let her stew for 47 minutes before I replied with 2 words. Fix what? She sent a photo of a bright orange envelope, the kind you only get from the mortgage company when they're angry. Then my mom called. I didn't pick up. So she texted, "Honey, what's going on with the mortgage? We got something in the mail. Is there a mistake?" I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered the look on Lindsay's face when she told me to be a team player while handing me a diaper. So I replied, "No mistake, team player benched." Then my dad called. He never texts. He just calls and breathes heavily until you answer. This time I picked up mostly because I missed him and wanted to hear his voice crack. "Todd, your mother's upset. The baby's sick. Lindsay's in tears. Trent's talking about moving to a motel. What the hell is going on?" I took a slow sip of my coffee, dragging out the moment like a villain in a TV show. "Did you know she called me selfish dad in your house after I paid for your medicine last month? After I paid off the hospital bill from when Trent fell off the roof trying to fix the antenna. I didn't even tell you I paid that, but I did." Silence, then a sigh. "I didn't know she said that. Look, maybe we can all sit down and double quotes. No, I said I can explain to Lindsay and Mr. Yoga Pants that their free ride is officially over. I'm done paying for people who disrespect the hand that feeds them. Dad, tell her I want my office plant back." Click. I turned off my phone, not out of spite, but for a moment of peace. And yet, that peace wouldn't last, because Lindsay wasn't finished. Her next move would involve someone else, and that person was about to get a painful lesson. I knew she was up to something the moment he showed up at my door. Rick, the uncle no one talks to unless there's beer involved. He's my mom's older brother, a retired corrections officer with a face like gravel and a handshake that feels like a challenge. The last time I saw him, he was thrown out of Thanksgiving dinner for calling Lindsay a glorified barnacle with Wi-Fi. So imagine my surprise when he showed up at my place in his rusted Dodge Ram, beer belly leading the way, holding a Tupperware container like a Trojan horse. I opened the door expecting banana bread, but instead, I got a passive-aggressive lecture. "Your mama's worried sick," he said, walking in without an invitation. "The kid's got an ear infection. Lindsay's 2 steps from a breakdown, and your daddy's been sleeping in the lazy boy like a war vet. You really gonna let the ship sink 'cause your feelings got poked?" I didn't say a word, just crossed my arms and waited for the real reason. He cracked open the Tupperware meatloaf, dry as a chalkboard, and slapped it on my counter like a bribe. "She asked me to talk to you," he admitted. "Said maybe you'd listen to someone who isn't high on essential oils in denial. She sent you." I raised an eyebrow. "You once told her that her wedding registry was a list of overpriced participation trophies." He chuckled. "Yeah, well, desperate times." I leaned against the counter, eyeing the sad meatloaf. "What's the pitch? Come home. Be the hero. Turn the lights back on." Rick scratched the back of his neck. "Not exactly." She wants to renegotiate, said she's willing to admit she was harsh. Harsh. I laughed out loud. It felt good, like releasing years of tension. She called me selfish for not wanting to be an unpaid nanny while paying their bills. Now that the walls are closing in, I'm suddenly a misunderstood saint. He didn't flinch. You think I don't get it. I do. That girl always had a way of starting fires and acting like the smoke was someone else's problem. But, Todd, this isn't about Lindsay anymore. This is about them, your folks. There it was, the guilt grenade. I let the silence hang, then dropped my own bomb. Rick, have you ever wondered why they didn't ask you for help? He blinked. I smiled, but it wasn't kind, because they know you'd say no. Because you don't cave. I did for years, until now. Rick sat down, looking tired for the first time. They said they raised us better. No, I said, they raised me to fix everything. I'm just finally learning to stop. He didn't argue. He just nodded once, stood up, patted the meatloaf like a consolation prize, and walked out without another word. 5 hours later, Lindsay posted another Instagram story, a black screen with white text that read, "Family isn't blood. It's who shows up." But in the background, I could barely hear a baby crying, a dog barking, and my mom's voice, sharp and panicked. Did you pay the water bill or not? And I hadn't, because that was tomorrow's problem. And tomorrow was when it would all fall apart. The explosion happened at 7:80 the next morning. Not a literal one, but you'd be forgiven for thinking. So based on the voicemail my mom left, 1 minute and 46 seconds of pure, chaotic opera, amidst the shrieking, clattering, and something that sounded like a toddler slapping a wet sponge against drywall, I caught key phrases like "water's off," "Lindsay can't bathe the baby," "What is wrong with you? Do you want us to get sick? The toilet won't flush. Todd." Then came the line that sealed it. "This is financial abuse." I replayed that part 5 times just to savor it. Financial abuse. Coming from the people who turned my savings account into a group project and acted like setting boundaries was a war crime. By 9 a.m., my dad texted me 3 words, "Call me." I didn't. At 9:34, Lindsay texted, "You've officially traumatized your niece. She saw me cry in the dark while changing her diaper. Hope you're happy." I stared at that one for a while, trying to figure out how to feel, until I remembered how she once called my breakup boring because I hadn't cried enough to make her Instagram story interesting. At 11:12, the cherry on top arrived, an email from the mortgage company. Subject, delinquent payment noted. The attached PDF was in bold red text showing a new balance and interest fees. A reminder that I wasn't the only one who could play the long game. She thought this was a one-sided war, that I'd cave once the guilt set in, that I'd come crawling back, wallet in hand, begging for forgiveness. But she didn't know I had a plan. It started 2 weeks before she moved in, before the baby, before the fake reconciliation at Thanksgiving. When I saw her browsing Zillow on her phone and whispering to my mom about getting on the deed, she forgot one thing. I was already on it. 6 years ago, after my dad's second heart surgery, he asked me to co-sign a refinance. He said he didn't trust Lindsay to keep her shoes tied, let alone a mortgage. I never asked to be on it. But there I was, silently watching. So I printed that PDF, tucked it into an envelope, and drove it to the house. I didn't knock. I just wedged it into the front door frame, right under the tacky wooden sign Lindsay had hung up last week that read, "Bless this mess." Then I walked back to my car and waited across the street. Engine off, just watching. 15 minutes later, the front door opened. Trent stepped out in socks, holding a half-a-tin Pop-Tart and the baby monitor. He saw the envelope, squinted, then called out, "Baby, this says foreclosure." Lindsay appeared behind him, wearing a towel turban and a look of rage. She snatched the paper, read the first line. Her entire face changed. I could see the realization, the crack in her voice when she shouted back into the house, "Mom, you said he wasn't on the loan?" I rolled up my window and drove away, slowly. But not before I saw my dad stumble onto the porch in his robe, holding a coffee he hadn't sipped yet. He saw the letter, saw Trent's face, then looked right at me. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, because now the house wasn't just falling apart. It was starting to drown. They didn't call that night. No rage texts, no crying voicemails, not even a passive-aggressive meme from my mom's Facebook. Just silent, colds, suffocating silence. It was as if the whole house finally realized I'd stopped playing the fool and started playing the banker. I figured they were regrouping, probably holding a war council over stale, trying to spin this into another one of Lindsay's victim monologues. But this time, there was no one to blame but the woman in the mirror and the unpaid water bill. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. "Can we talk? Just you and me. Coffee." Now that rattled me more than all the screaming put together. Because my father doesn't ask for coffee. He orders it gruff and half asleep, as if it personally offends him. I agreed and told him to meet me at Lou's Diner, the one with cracked booths and a waitress who calls everyone honey. It was neutral territory. He showed up looking 10 years older, slumped in a windbreaker he probably owned since the 90s. No Lindsay, no mom, just him. He sat down, didn't even look at the menu, just rubbed his forehead and sighed. "You've made your point," he said. I took a slow sip of my black coffee. "Which one?" He didn't flinch. All of them. He stared at the sugar packets like they held the answers to life. I let this whole thing get out of hand. I thought if we just gave her time, she'd grow up. I thought you were strong enough to handle the weight for a little while longer. I swallowed the bitter lump in my throat. Dad, I wasn't made to carry other people's problems forever. And Lindsay isn't growing up. She's squatting in her immaturity. He looked out the window as if the rusted trucks and strip mall could save him. "I never wanted you to feel used." "Well," I said, "intentions don't keep the lights on." That hit him. He winced as if I'd slapped him with a check stub. Then he did something I wasn't prepared for. He pulled out a plain, thick, white envelope and slid it across the table like it was radioactive. "She's not on the deed," he said. "But you are." I called the bank. "You can pull your name and leave us to clean this up. Or ... I raised an eyebrow. "Or," he continued, "you take it. All of it. The house, the loan, the mess." I blinked. "You're giving me the house?" I'm giving you what's already yours, he said. I'm tired, Todd. Your mother's not speaking to me? Unless it's through the baby monitor. Trent's been Googling how to buy Bitcoin fast and thinks we can sell the microwave for rent money. I'm done pretending this is sustainable. I stared at the envelope for a moment. Just a moment. I considered torching it all, letting the whole thing collapse under its own stupidity. Walking away and watching them claw at the wreckage like reality TV contestants in a morality maze. But then I remembered what Lindsay said when they first moved in. You're so lucky, Todd. No kids, no responsibilities, just your boring little job and your quiet little life. I remembered. I smiled. I'll take it, I said, sliding the envelope into my coat. My dad nodded once. Then I'll start packing. Not you, I said. He blinked. What? You can stay. But Lindsay and Trent have 7 days. After that, the locks change. He stared at me for a moment, then smiled, a small, tired smile, like a man who just had his handcuffs removed. I'll help you pick the new locks. And that's when I knew the house wasn't just mine now. The rules were to... The countdown began with a kind of sunshine that felt like a warning. Too bright and clean, as if the universe were scrubbing the filth from the timeline. I didn't waste it. At 9 a.m. sharp, I parked in front of the house with a stack of printed notices and a roll of blue painter's tape. I didn't even knock. I just walked right in. I taped one notice to the front door, one to the fridge, and another to the baby's high chair for good measure. Bold letters read, Notice of termination of occupancy effective in 7 days. Below that, I wrote, This property is now legally under my sole management. You are not tenants. You are guests. You have no lease. You have no protection. You have 7 days to vacate. If you damage a single item, I press charges. If you remove anything, I call the cops. Try me. I didn't even make it to the sidewalk before Lindsay came storming out barefoot, wearing one of my old hoodies. You think this is funny? She hissed, holding the fridge copy like it had personally insulted her yoga mat. I didn't break stride. I think it's legal. Trent followed behind her, shirtless and confused, like he'd just emerged from a YouTube rabbit hole. Yo, is this even allowed? I turned and gave him the slowest head-to-toe stare I could. Not only is it allowed, I said, it's happening. But where are we supposed to go? Lindsay snapped, her voice rising. The same place you were going to go before you crash-landed here like a couple of bankrupt pigeons. She blinked. You can't just evict your own sister. I nodded slowly. You're right. I can remove unauthorized occupants for non-payment of utilities, abuse of property, and emotional terrorism. Sound familiar? Mom's not going to let this happen, she said, crossing her arms like a bratty mall cop. She doesn't have a say anymore, I said. She lost her vote when she let you use my toothbrush and called it sharing. Trent muttered something about toxic energy, but I was already walking to my car. 7 days. That's all I gave them. In those 7 days, they turned the house into a war zone. Trash was accidentally dumped in the kitchen sink. Every room smelled like baby wipes and burnt popcorn. My old room was pillaged. My desk flipped. My college diploma was ripped in half and shoved under a mattress. My mom called on day 2, her voice trembling. This is tearing us apart. No, I said. This is revealing the cracks you've ignored for years. I'm just putting up caution tape. On day 4, Trent started sulking around the neighborhood shirtless, blasting Pitbull from his phone like a territorial goose. Lindsay posted a video of the baby with the caption, "Sad we're being kicked out by our own blood, but we will rise." It got 6 likes. One of them was from her old high school enemy, which honestly made me laugh out loud. On day 6, my dad texted, "Locks arrive Monday. Want me to do the install or you?" I just replied, "Bring your drill." And then it was day 7, the final hour. I pulled into the driveway just as Lindsay and Trent were shoving trash bags into the back of his Jeep. Still held together by duct tape from the time he sideswiped a mailbox and claimed the universe was testing him. The baby was crying. The dog they rescued was barking as if it wanted to go back to hell. Lindsay stood in front of the porch like a martyr. We didn't even get time to say goodbye. I walked right past her and opened the door. She followed me in. "You're a monster. You know that one day you're going to regret this." I turned slowly. "Maybe? But at least I won't regret being spineless." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "Keys." She tossed them onto the counter. Trent grunted, "Hope your precious little house keeps you warm at night." "It will," I said, locking the door behind them. Once I bleached the carpets and exorcised the smell of entitlement. Just like that, the circus left town. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't finished, because a week later, Lindsay made one final mistake, and this one cost her everything. She should have left it alone. But Lindsay's pride was like a cockroach in a microwave. You can burn it, blast it, bury it in eviction notices, and it still comes back twitching, clutching an iPhone and a grudge. It started with a ping on my credit report for a charge I didn't recognize, a $1,200 purchase from some small online furniture store in Delaware, billed to my name and address, but not my account. I froze. Then I laughed. Lindsay had forgotten that I didn't just pay the bills. I tracked them obsessively. I had spreadsheets that could make IRS agents cry. When that ping hit, I pulled the receipts and tracked the IP address. There it was. Her new apartment, a 30-day rental booked under my name. She had tried to open a credit line using my information to upgrade a rental she couldn't afford with a man who still thought crypto was a lifestyle brand. So I did what any loving, betrayed brother would do. I called the card company, flagged it as fraud, and told them everything. They nuked the charge, locked the account, and sent me a new card with a fraud alert thicker than a DMV handbook. Then I called her new landlord, the nice lady, a retired teacher, was very concerned. "They've been odd," she said. "Lots of deliveries." One came at 3 a.m. baby formula and vodka. I faxed her the police report. By that afternoon, Lindsay and Trent were on the do not rent list, and their rental was terminated early with no refund. But that wasn't the most satisfying part. That came later that week when Lindsay's new lifestyle coaching gig launched on Instagram at Thrive. Wife, mom, healer, vibe, curator. She went all in. Selfies with crystals, motivational quotes stolen from Pinterest, and photos of her homemade smoothie bowls that looked like a raccoon's last meal. Her followers, 80s. Her likes, 2. One of them was from Trent. So I sent one anonymous message from a burner account. A single direct message with a screenshot of her eviction notice and fraud alert, with a note that read, "Healers don't steal identities." Within 24 hours, her coaching page was gone. But I still wasn't done. The cherry on top, I sent the same screenshot to her old high school where she'd applied to be a parent mentor for struggling mothers. I don't know if you've ever heard a suburban school board chairperson gasp, but it sounds like an old balloon giving up on life. She was blacklisted from the district before she could even finish filling out her paperwork. And Trent? He tried to sell their baby's crib for vape money on Facebook Marketplace. He didn't even bother to change the name on the tag. A week later, I got a postcard with no return address. Just 6 words scribbled in frantic handwriting. "You're dead to us forever." Good. Because the next week, the locksmith finished replacing every lock in the house. I stood there alone in the hallway, the echo bouncing off clean walls in peace. And I framed that postcard, hanging it in the laundry room right above the breaker box. A little reminder that sometimes the most selfish thing you can do is save yourself and lock the damn door behind you.